Now we will go for the power talk. So the second power talk, the last power talk of the conference. So you already know Lisa. So Lisa is our next speaker. Lisa D. Pagter. She is Youth Ambassador on SRHR, Gender Equality and Bodily Autonomy. She is currently working as a special independent policy advisor for SRHR, Gender Equality, Bodily uh, Autonomy, and Meaningful Youth Participation at the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So let me have the opportunity to invite Lisa for her power talk. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me and having me say a little something about a topic that's very close to my heart, which is sexual and reproductive health and rights for young people, especially. Of course, you've all been working very hard on that same theme in all its facets, and I'm super glad to see that you're all going beyond the normal scope and actually using your creativity to use an intersectional approach. And I actually want to make with this power talk a little pitch and have a little conversation about that intersectional approach and its importance for SRHR programming. In my role, as it was just mentioned, as Youth Ambassador for Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights, Gender Equality and Bodily Autonomy, it is my job to make sure that in Dutch foreign policy for SRHR, we also use this intersectional scope. My role was brought into being about 6 years ago because at the ministry they realized we cannot be making policies about young people's sexual and reproductive health and rights and their well-being and their gender equality and everything that goes around that without young people actually being involved. And it was actually mentioned by Meret just now during her pitch, but the intersectional approach is really one that we need when we talk about SRHR and the way it affects us. SRHR are related to every single aspect of life, especially for young people. And although I think we all know this, I'd still like to highlight some examples. We sometimes tend to talk about SRHR as a silo, a theme by itself, which is good in a way because SRHR and the services that come along with it and the sensitivities that they bear sometimes really deserve special attention. But I always find it a really nice exercise to think a little beyond that and put SRHR into the context of broader life issues and global challenges, especially for young people, because it puts things in perspective and it really confirms to us why we do the work that we do. It's easy to lose track of the reason that you do the work because of bureaucracy or pushback or just getting cynical and really having to keep pushing for the things that you stand for. But they're there and we know those reasons deep down. And so this might all sound a little abstract, but just let me give you some examples. One of my predecessors, Melody Tamarzians, she visited Ethiopia during her term as youth ambassador. And she spoke to a girl there who had to drop out of school because she'd started her period. And I think we all agree that that in itself is terrible, but think of the longer consequences, right? She's dropping out of school, can't continue her education, and therefore will very likely have issues with becoming socially and economically independent. And her potential in that way is lost simply because of the stigma that she faced for being a young woman with a fully functional body. Same thing counts for being able to access the contraceptives. For both a young person or someone of a middle age, or anything in between, contraceptives are essential to being able to take control of your life. If you can manage how many kids you want and when and with who, that also gives you the liberty to choose to go to university or develop yourself, become economically stable, and also provide for those kids if you want them at all. And especially right now during COVID, we can see the tremendous effects that a virus has on global SRHR. And I think by now we're all aware of the shadow pandemic, which in my opinion shouldn't even be called that because it's just as urgent and in need of attention. But of course, we all know when kids stay out of school, not only do they miss out on the opportunity to learn and develop themselves, they also lose the protection that schools might offer from a dangerous home situation. That's just one of the examples of how the shadow pandemic is working right now. And for a last example, and this is one that really blew my mind when I realized it, but so often we don't, is that there are programs and projects that aim to eliminate sexual and gender-based violence in the home. And so often, they fail to take into account that a victim and their abuser are intrinsically connected through much more than living in the same house, most prominently through economic independence. You can take a woman out of the house of her abuser, but if she's not economically independent and does not have the means to provide for herself, chances she has to go back to her abuser out of necessity are considerable. So once more, here, providing SRHR by itself is not an effective solution. It has to go along with empowerment and independence. So these are only a few examples showing the importance of sexual and reproductive health and rights, both as a human right as well as a means to address root causes of inequality and poverty. And thankfully, there are some best practices too that show that especially young people's input in SRHR is indispensable for SRHR and also broader social issues. For example, the Dutch Embassy in Nairobi organizes bi-monthly civil society meetings where young people also join in and share their thoughts and issues and expertise with the Dutch government. Young people are really gaining terrain in decision-making, and I think that's, of course, most prominently showcased by the youth climate movement, but also youth advocates for SRHR and gender equality that are standing up and claiming their place at the table. I think even my position existing in itself is an example of young people really getting more traction on the inside and really trying to affect that change. Although, sometimes it might not be the most meaningful, but I think we're really creating momentum for ourselves to be there and to really have an effect on the decisions that are being made about us. And we're seeing the effects, right? If we include young people in decision-making, not just about the issues that are about young people as well, right? The policies are more effective and durable. And it makes sense because you're taking into account a lot more issues that, if you're 50, you might just not have thought of before. So yeah, I think we really all agree that SRHR is a central aspect of every life stage, and having the ability to claim your rights and access all the services you might need really prepares you for a future where you can take control. So thanks so much for listening, and good luck to everyone on your products.